Alright, it is day 7, the final day of the reading rush. It is about 1 p.m. I've not done any readings so far yet today. I did totally edit, export, and upload yesterday's vlog, so that's what I've spent most of the day doing so far. I also made some more cold brew because now I'm out. I do plan on spending some of today working on at least one video, other than this vlog, obviously. So I'm going to be doing that. But I am going to be doing some reading as well. I'm honestly not really feeling a really dense nonfiction though. I'm not super used to reading like political science texts, and eco-socialism was really taking me a minute to get through, and I do want to read it. I am going to read it. I just don't know if I'm in the mood to read it today. So rather than reading eco-socialism for the outside prompt, I think I'm going to read the first volume of Saga, which I've wanted to get to, and I'm kind of in a graphic novel-y mood, as well as the sci-fi fantasy kind of mood. So I think this will be good for that. I think I'm I think that it can go along with the outside prompt because it seems like they are probably going to spend the majority of the time outside of their house. The description says that they're trying to find their place in the universe, and it takes place in space. I really do want to actually read outside. I just don't think there's a good way for me to do that. Like, I really considered going to the park and maybe reading, but I feel like if I do that, I'm just going to be really hot. I wish that I had a yard so that I could just start outside and then come inside pretty easily, but that's not the case. In short, my plan for today, work on videos and then read the first volume of Saga. It is now about 2:40. I was able to film my August TBR and I'm really excited about it. Of course, I think I get super excited after I plan like each TBR. I just really like making lists and the idea of reading books. So I got that filmed. Hopefully I can edit that in the next few days and have it up. I also read a number of Reading Rush vlogs and a couple of other videos, but now I'm going to sit down and actually read. I am unfortunately out of cold brew and not really feeling hot tea, so I am drinking my last cherry vanilla Coke, and I thought that I had a few other ones, so I'm a little bit sad that this is the only one. I don't really see it a whole lot of places, so I hope that it's somewhere and it wasn't just limited time because that would make me really sad. But anyways, I'm gonna get started on the first volume of Saga. So I finished the first volume of Saga, and it was really neat. The art is super cool, and the storyline is fascinating. There is so much background so far as like the setting goes, and there are a few really interesting plots. It seems like a lot of the characters are going to be kind of complicated. There's some interesting things going on with gray morality and that sort of thing. So I am super interested in reading more of this. It's really hard for me to rate books, especially stuff like comics, especially when they're the first in the series. So it might be a little bit annoying to give this 5 stars and then like a few volumes later wanting to give that like 10 stars and not being able to because 5 is the limit. But I'll probably still end up giving this 5 stars just because it's super solid. It's a very good introduction. I'm excited to get into the series. Hopefully I can find the rest of them used. I found this at a used bookstore, and I'm not even sure if that bookstore is open in the normal way right now. It's also like an hour away, so I don't want to drive up there to pick it up, but I'll probably look on Better World Books or something. So yeah, Saga was really good. I am excited, and I'm really glad that I added that to this week. It didn't take me that long to read it. It's 3:45 now, so I've got to decide if I want to read more or if I want to do something like cleaning my apartment or doing the dishes, both of which I should do but don't really want to. We'll see what ends up happening, and if there are any cool updates, I will check back in. So, what I was hoping is that I would read Saga and then be okay with switching into nonfiction, because like I mentioned before, I was not really in a nonfiction mood, definitely not in a dense nonfiction mood, but that has not changed. I was kind of hoping that maybe I could start The Source of Self-Regard, or Intersectionality, both of which are on my TBRs for the month. But no, I want fantasy, which is weird because I feel like I don't actually read that much sci-fi fantasy. The majority of the sci-fi fantasy that I do read tends to be graphic novels, I think. The Seep got me in a mood. Saga has continued that mood. And now I am going to start on the Dark Crystal novels. Now I have had these novels. I have the first three. Apparently there's a fourth that I found while looking up the book order because for some reason they didn't bother to put numbers on here, which is annoying, but it's fine. I had bought these probably last summer. I think a little bit before they released the new series on Netflix, I had found the graphic novels, and then I decided to do, I think it was like a free trial of the Amazon Kindle Unlimited. And when I had that, I read the three graphic novels, and I really, really liked it. The graphic novels were like backstory. I really want to own them, honestly. I'm going to buy them at some point. But I think these are also prequel, but I think that it's not as distant as the graphic novels. I could be wrong. I may look a little bit of background up before I start, just to be sure. I haven't actually seen the series on Netflix yet, but I loved the original. I watched that as a kid. If you have not seen it, definitely watch it. You know, as an adult watching it the first time might not be the best. Honestly, so far as like the world building and stuff, there is a lot going on, but not a lot of it is explained. So that's one of the reasons why having kind of this backstory is interesting. I don't know why I like it so much, but I got into it a decent bit last summer, and I've been looking forward to these books, but I've been waiting to get in kind of the right mood, and I think I'm good to start them. So I'm super excited. So I just finished chapter 2, so I'm only on page 20. There's not really a whole lot to report. In general, I have a hard time getting into high fantasy books, which is one of the reasons why, like, I hadn't started this yet. I do know a decent amount about the world. Like I said, I've seen the movie and read the graphic novels, but this, like, going straight into it talks a ton about Gelfling culture. And that I don't know a ton about, because in the movie, they're like the last two Gelflings, so you don't really get to hear a ton about their culture. And then in the graphic novels, the Gelflings are sort of on the periphery, and you're focused on somebody else. So it's a little bit hard getting thrown in and having to figure it all out. So I'm a little bit disoriented first going in. Once I actually get through the first few chapters, I think I'm going to be good. But it's hard to really say much about it at this point. However, I think I'm going to stop for a minute and go make some tea, maybe get a snack, and then get back to it. So a little bit of an update. I got to page 60 of Shadows of the Dark Crystal. So it has set up the adventure, the quest that the main character is going to go on. So it should be good. I am getting a little bit more used to kind of absorbing the details of the different, like, cultures, I guess, because each of the different groups of Gelflings are very different. They even have different biological characteristics, which is interesting. But it is really interesting so far. I think that it is, the writing style is maybe not my favorite because there are, I guess some places where they just almost put too many details, which, I mean, that might just be that's probably just my personal taste. But I mean, it's a pretty neat book so far, and I'm interested to see where it goes, especially considering the fact that this is at least 4 books long, and obviously I don't know the ending of the book, but I know the trajectory of, like, the world, and I have a couple of ideas as to what might happen, just because this is a prequel to The Dark Crystal, even though this is set pretty far in the past from The Dark Crystal. But I still have some ideas, so I'm interested to see how it will play out. But, as well as reading some of that, I also did, a little bit of internet browsing, watched some YouTube videos, I played Animal Crossing a little bit, apparently had some rotten turnips, which was a little bit sad, but that's fine. And of course, while I was internet surfing, I got on Twitter and saw that apparently the Reading Rush live show was a little bit ridiculous. Honestly, I don't even watch either of the people who run the Reading Rush. I only knew about it because, like, everybody was participating. So that's disappointing that people who put this giant thing together are, not tone deaf, because that's kind of ableist. Just consistently doing things that are thoughtless, kind of in regards to minority communities. That's disappointing, but that is also hopefully incentive for more people to try to check in with smaller creators in the different events that they put together. I feel like some of the stuff that I've been a part of have been put together by larger creators, like the Reading Rush, and like the Asian Readathon. But there's also a lot of stuff that comes from smaller people as well. Either people with a smaller following or, like, just events that don't have as big of a following. Like, I mention it in my August TBR video that's going to be coming up, but the Heart Readathon looks super cool. And I honestly don't even remember how I found out about it. I don't know if it was suggested to me, because I didn't follow any of the people, I don't think, that were hosting it. But I stumbled upon it, found some cool people to follow because all of the co-hosts seem pretty neat. But the whole premise of that readathon is really interesting, and to me, at least the way that I kind of took the prompts, it kind of integrates character and theme, which are some of my favorite things, and it's inclusive of fiction and nonfiction. And that runs through the whole month of August, so definitely look at the people who are hosting the events' YouTube channels that I'll link down below. But as well as that, I also looked into some stuff about the ADA, because some people were talking about how it's the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and some people were talking about that. It's really cool to see disabled perspectives on that, especially since, you know, we've come far, but not that far if people are talking about being okay with certain people dying from a pandemic. So there are some interesting perspectives that I might as well link down below. If you're not familiar with the ADA or disability studies, I highly recommend that you look that up. I feel like people talk about disability a lot less than I see them talk about, like, LGBT issues, race issues, and different things like that, which is sort of surprising because disability is one of the few things that can impact literally anyone at any given moment. Not everybody is disabled, obviously, but anybody can become disabled. And ableism is just really pervasive in general. But between reading about all of those different things, I think that my mind is in a better place now to where I can read nonfiction if I want. I think that I could go back to The Dark Crystal, but I do think that I want to kind of shift focus to a couple of my TBR books, so I think that I may read a little bit of Toni Morrison's Source of Self-Regard, which is the group read for the Fuckathon. So I will check back in and let you all know how that goes. So I knew going into this that it was going to be good because it's Toni Morrison. I haven't read a ton of Toni Morrison. I read Sula, and it made a really big impact. Like just the detail and writing style alone was enough to leave an impression on me, to the point where there was one semester that I took a class and we read an excerpt of Sula, and it like seared itself in my brain. So a year later, when I was taking another class and reading that book, we came to that scene, and it, like, I remembered it exactly. The whole point of that being, the way that she uses language is just unparalleled. And I say that after, like, a week of 4.5 and 5-star books. That same quality of language is coming out in this nonfiction piece, too. And this is going to be a really intense read if she goes at 100% with her skill throughout the whole thing. Much of an update, but I had to stop for a little bit to feed my cats because they were being very loud. But I also changed beverage. It's not your father's root beer, which is actually really good. I'm not really a beer person. If anything, I usually go with ciders. I think this is technically an ale. I don't really know what all the differences are. I like stuff that's tasty. I really tend to go kind of on the sweet side most of the time, even with the stuff that is stronger that you can taste, you know, the liquor in. I like it to be a little bit sweet. And this does actually taste a decent amount like root beer, so it's a pretty good time. I'll continue with Toni Morrison, but just with alcohol as well. It is 3:30 a.m., so I'm going to head to bed. At the end of the day, I ended up finishing Saga, getting to page 60 of Shadows of the Dark Crystal, and to page 40 of The Source of Self-Regard. That means that this week I have started and completed 8 books and started an additional 3. So I think that's really successful. And I had a really, really fun time vlogging, so I may do this more often. I think sometimes I feel like I need a reason in order to make a specific type of video, but that's pretty silly, so I may just vlog more when I find books that I really want to talk about, or maybe during certain events. We'll see what happens. But that is all for this week. I hope you all had a productive reading week. Let me know of any good books that you've read recently down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.